World-famous bedtime stories from Mom. Today's story is Little Red Riding Hood. Long ago, in a small and peaceful village, there lived a lovely little girl. She was always bright and cheerful, but there was one thing she especially cherished, which was a red hood given to her by her grandmother. This red hood suited the girl so well, and whenever she wore it, all the villagers would greet her. "Ah, here comes Little Red Riding Hood, my dear granddaughter. Wearing this hood will always keep you healthy and happy," said the grandmother. Little Red Riding Hood was incredibly happy to receive this gift filled with her grandmother's love. From that day on, she never went anywhere without her hood. Seeing the hood, the villagers would smile warmly at her, and she greeted the villagers as she roamed around the village. From the village's small shops, the wide squares, to the beautiful riverbank, Little Red Riding Hood wandered around the village wearing her hood. One morning, while having breakfast with her mother, Little Red Riding Hood, "Your grandmother is feeling a bit unwell today. How about you go and see her?" suggested her mother. Little Red Riding Hood loved her grandmother very much. "Yes, I will go and visit grandmother." Her mother handed her a basket, saying, "Here are some cakes and wine. Grandmother will like them, but be careful. The forest path can be dangerous." Little Red Riding Hood assured her mother not to worry. "Mom, don't worry. I'll safely go and come back from grandmother's house," she replied. Holding the basket, Little Red Riding Hood took the path to her grandmother's house. Seeing the pretty flowers along the way, she decided to prepare a bouquet for her grandmother. "Grandmother will surely be happy to see these flowers," she muttered to herself. The forest was quiet and peaceful, but Little Red Riding Hood did not forget her mother's words and remained vigilant. The small animals of the forest looked at her with curiosity, greeting her with their eyes. "Hello, I'm on my way to grandmother's house." Little Red Riding Hood kindly greeted the animals too. While walking through the forest, Little Red Riding Hood suddenly met a big wolf. The wolf showed interest in the basket she was carrying. "Hey, Little Red Riding Hood, what's in that basket?" asked the wolf cunningly. Little Red Riding Hood, not thinking the wolf was scary, naively answered, "Hello, Mr. Wolf. Inside this basket are cakes and wine for my grandmother. She is unwell." The wolf became even more interested upon hearing this. "Really? Where does your grandmother live?" the wolf asked again. Little Red Riding Hood told the wolf the location of her grandmother's house. Grandmother's house is deep in the forest, under a large oak tree, with a hazelnut fence around it. The wolf, scheming inside, advised Little Red Riding Hood. "Little Red Riding Hood, don't hurry and look around. The forest is full of beautiful flowers and splendid views. Grandmother will understand even if you're late." Little Red Riding Hood listened to the wolf's words. "Should I? Then I'll pick some more beautiful flowers for grandmother." Naively believing the wolf's words, she started picking flowers. While Little Red Riding Hood was picking flowers, the wolf secretly ran to the grandmother's house. Rushing through the forest, the wolf thought about his plan. "If I get to grandmother's house first, I can deceive both the grandmother and Little Red Riding Hood." The wolf cunningly figured out a way to deceive the grandmother and enter the house. Upon arrival, the wolf knocked on the door. imitating Little Red Riding Hood's voice. "Grandmother, it's me, Little Red Riding Hood. Please open the door." But the grandmother recognized the wolf's trick. "Who is it? It doesn't sound like my granddaughter," the grandmother asked cautiously. However, the wolf did not give up and deceived the grandmother more cunningly, eventually entering the house. After surprising the grandmother, he quickly gobbled her up. The wolf then dressed in the grandmother's clothes and lay in bed, waiting for Little Red Riding Hood. Meanwhile, Little Red Riding Hood was picking a beautiful bouquet of flowers in the forest. "Grandmother will surely be happy to receive these flowers." Little Red Riding Hood was lost in happy thoughts while choosing flowers. She was unaware of the time passing as she picked the flowers. As Little Red Riding Hood was picking flowers, the animals of the forest also gathered around her. A little rabbit sniffed the flowers, sniff, sniff, enjoying their scent, and birds sang beautiful songs from the tree branches. Little Red Riding Hood enjoyed her time with these forest friends. But time was quickly passing. Little Red Riding Hood, realizing she needed to go to her grandmother's house, hurriedly left the flower field. "Grandmother must be waiting. I should go now." The wolf, dressed in grandmother's clothes, was lying in bed. He practiced imitating the grandmother while waiting for Little Red Riding Hood. "If I act just like grandmother, Little Red Riding Hood will mistake me for her." The wolf, satisfied with his cunning plan, laughed. Then, Little Red Riding Hood's voice was heard outside the door. "Grandmother, I'm here!" exclaimed Little Red Riding Hood joyfully. The wolf, imitating the grandmother's voice, answered, "Lift the latch and come in, my dear." Little Red Riding Hood, without any suspicion, opened the door. At that moment, the wolf was waiting in the grandmother's bed for Little Red Riding Hood. As Little Red Riding Hood opened the door, the wolf, pretending to be the grandmother, tried to deceive her. "Come in, my dear granddaughter. Grandmother has been waiting just for you." Little Red Riding Hood quickly entered the grandmother's house. Seeing the door open, she found it odd, but, thinking grandmother was expecting her, she called out loudly, "Grandmother, I'm here." But from that moment on, there was no response. "Grandmother?" Little Red Riding Hood called again, but the house remained silent. Stepping cautiously inside, Little Red Riding Hood looked around. Everything seemed normal, but she felt something was off. "Grandmother, where are you?" With a nervous heart, Little Red Riding Hood walked towards the bed. Standing beside it, she noticed something was different about the grandmother's appearance. Grandmother's face was deeply buried in the pillow, and her voice sounded different. "Grandmother, are you all right?" Little Red Riding Hood asked cautiously. "Grandmother, why are your ears so big?" Little Red Riding Hood pointed out the grandmother's large ears, asking. The wolf, imitating the grandmother's voice, answered, "So I can hear you better, my dear." Little Red Riding Hood's eyes filled with suspicion. "But why are your hands so big?" Again, the wolf, imitating the grandmother's voice, answered, "So I can hug you better." "But grandmother, why is your mouth so big?" Little Red Riding Hood asked, growing more suspicious. At that moment, the wolf stopped pretending to be the grandmother and revealed his true form. "So I can eat you up," the wolf shouted, jumping out of bed towards Little Red Riding Hood. After swallowing Little Red Riding Hood, the wolf began to snore loudly, satisfied. A hunter passing through the forest heard the wolf's strange snoring and became curious. "I've never heard such a sound in this forest before," muttered the hunter to himself. The hunter cautiously approached the grandmother's house. Looking through the window, he saw not the grandmother but a large wolf sleeping in the bed. Oh no, did this wolf eat the grandmother? And to snore so loudly? The hunter sensed the wolf had done something strange. The hunter silently entered the grandmother's house and approached the wolf. Seeing the wolf's belly unnaturally swollen, he wondered, could the grandmother and Little Red Riding Hood still be alive? He began to carefully cut open the wolf's belly, preparing to safely rescue the grandmother and Little Red Riding Hood. As the hunter's hand started to carefully slice the wolf's belly, first, a surprised Little Red Riding Hood appeared from the darkness. "Oh, where am I? It's so dark and damp here." Little Red Riding Hood blinked and said, realizing she was rescued by the hunter, she exclaimed, "Thank you so much, Mr. Hunter." Happily, then, the hunter, being even more cautious, continued to cut the wolf's belly, this time rescuing the grandmother. "Phew, I can finally breathe freely. Thank you for saving me, young man." The grandmother sighed with relief and thanked him. The hunter, Little Red Riding Hood, and the grandmother together filled the wolf's belly with large stones. "Now this wolf won't bother us ever again," the hunter said, and they carefully sewed up the wolf's belly with needle and thread. After everything was done, they gathered in the grandmother's house, drinking warm tea and talking about the day's events. When the wolf finally woke up, he felt his belly was strangely heavy. "Why is my body so heavy?" the wolf wondered, confused, and tried to get up. He was thirsty and headed to the well to drink water, but his body was too heavy to walk easily. Arriving at the well, the wolf, burdened by the heavy stones, leaned over to drink but couldn't withstand the weight and fell straight into the well. "Help me!" the wolf cried out for the last. The wolf disappeared into the depths of the well. The grandmother's house regained its peace. Little Red Riding Hood, the grandmother, and the hunter, after witnessing the wolf's end at the well, returned home relieved. "Our forest is safe again. Thank you for saving us all from the danger of the wolf, Mr. Hunter." Little Red Riding Hood expressed her gratitude. The grandmother, Little Red Riding Hood, and the hunter remained friends for a long time afterward. They often gathered to drink tea and share stories, dreaming of other adventures.